Hi guys and gals. So today we're going to talk about clocks and telling time. And we're going to start with the question, what is a clock? We know that clocks are used to tell time. And there's a bunch of different kinds of clocks. So this one right here with all the numbers in it, or this watch with all the numbers in it where there's a shorthand and a longhand, is something called an analog clock. Analog clock. You'll see that word right up here, analog. And that just means that it's a clock with numbers and the two hands that you have to read. Now there's a different kind of clock, and that kind of clock is one of these down here, right here. You'll see on my watch when I turn it on at school, I click the button and the numbers come up right away. I don't have to read the numbers on the clock. This is called a digital clock. Today we're mostly going to talk about analog clocks, and we're going to talk about how you tell time with that shorthand and that longhand. So how do we use clocks? Well, we know at school we use clocks all the time. We use them for various reasons: to tell us what time it is, obviously, to tell us how long we have to complete something, to tell us how much time has passed since we did something. We can use clocks in a number of ways to tell time and to measure time. Obviously, we know a clock measures time, the amount of time that has passed or gone by. So let's look at this clock face. This is the face of a clock, and it's called an analog clock, like we said, as it is just a clock face with the numbers, and we have to tell the time by where the hands are placed. So the clock has 12 numbers on it. We always start up here at the 12, and then we go around once and twice in a day. So the first time we go around, every day starts right here at midnight. Okay? And so we start at midnight, and we know from what we learned that midnight is AM, and the clock goes around 2 times. So the first time it goes around is early in the morning, you're still sleeping, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9, 10, 11, and then we get to 12 again, but this time when we get to 12, it turns to p.m. And when we get there again, we're at 12 p.m., which is 12 noon, which is lunchtime. Okay? Then the clock goes around one more time. So we start at noon, and we have 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Oh, you're out of school, it's 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. You're probably having supper. 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. You're probably getting ready for bed. 10 p.m. you're sleeping. 11 p.m. you're sleeping. 12, we go back to a.m. at 12, you're sleeping, and then the next day starts. So every day the clock goes around 2 times, and every time it hits one of these, that's an hour. So that means the clock goes 12 hours once, 12 hours twice, which means in our day we have 24 hours. Now, our clock is usually, in a way to tell time, is usually split up into 4 quarters. And that just means first we split it in half, and then we split it in half again. And then these are our quarters. This is a quarter after, this is a half after, this is 3/4 after, or a quarter to. We'll get to that. But just so you know that clocks are often split up in half and then in 4s. Okay, so when we look at the hands on a clock, there are 2 different hands that help us to tell time. The first hand that we look at is the short one. And they're noticeably different length, and you have to really pay attention to the length of them because that matters. So we have the short hand, so these 2 are shorter. Okay, and we know they're shorter because they don't quite touch the number, whereas the long hand almost always touches the number. Okay, so the short hand. The shorthand is the hour hand. The shorthand tells us what hour or what o'clock it is. So where it's pointing tells us what hour it is. So this one would tell us that we're at 8 o'clock, and this one would tell us that it's at 12 o'clock. So the shorthand tells us what hour it is. A way that I kind of remember is a hint is that hour and short both have R's in them. So it's easy for me to remember the shorthand is for the hour. I think about that R, okay? Now something really important to remember about the shorthand is if it is almost at the 9, like right there, but it's not yet exactly at it or past it, then it's not yet 9 o'clock. It's still 8 o'clock. Because this hour hand will slowly move closer to 9 as the minute hands go around. Now, this long hand right here, oops, sorry, that wasn't very good. This long hand that's much longer is our minute hand. Okay, so the long hand is the minute hand, and the minute hand points to the number of minutes that have passed after this hour. So right here, this minute hand tells us that we're right at the first hour. And we'll get to that, how to tell time. And this one tells us that we're just a little bit past the hour. Now, this minute hand is going to travel all the way around here, 60 minutes, past the hour, and then once it gets to the top, this hour hand is going to move to the next number, which means the next hour has come. So the clock is continuously moving, hour after hour, minute after minute, second after second. But for today, we're going to focus mostly on the long hand and the short hand, and then we'll get into how to tell the exact time. So a good hint for me for the long hand is it's long and it has an N in it, and minute has an N in it. So just like I used that trick for hour and short, this one I use the long hand, long, and the minute. They both have N's in them. So at this point, if you haven't already taken any notes, I'd like you to take out your notebook. And on a clean page, I want you to write telling time. And just take a minute to write yourself some notes. And the first thing that you might want to tell yourself is that the long hand, we'll start here with a short hand with the R, tells the hour or the o'clock. And the long hand tells the minutes past the hour. So take a minute, jot that down. You might even want to draw yourself a little diagram showing a shorthand and a long hand and a clock, just to help yourself remember what do those two hands mean again. So pause the video and come back when you've written that down. Okay, so here's a question. The question is, which hand is pointing at 3? Is it the minute hand or the hour hand? Okay, well, I see in this one, pardon me, this one is pointing to 3 and this one is pointing to 3. Okay, so let's see. In this one, it is not quite touching. It's much shorter, hear that sound. So this 3 is the hour hand. It's showing 3 o'clock. Okay, now the minute hand is the longer one, long minute. This one is touching the 3. It's much longer. So that's my minute hand. Okay, you try this one, okay? I want you to look at each clock and I want you to say what number is the minute hand pointing to in each clock. Remember, the minute hand is the N, has the N in it, it's the long hand. Okay, so take a minute, pause it if you need to, and then we'll come back and we'll correct it. All right, so here we're looking. The long hand is the minute hand. Here it's pointing to the 6. On this clock, the long hand is pointing to the 3. So the minute hand is pointing to the 3. Not quite touching. Touching, it's longer. So the minute hand is pointing to the 12. And here, the hour hand is right here. See, it's not quite at 12. That's important to notice. It would still be 11. But we're looking at the long hand here. The minute hand in this one is pointing to the 9. Alright, now guys and gals, I'm just going to flip over here for a second. And we're going to look at the hour hand this time. So we just looked at the minute hand. Now we're going to just take a few seconds to look at the hour hand. So the hour hand tells us how many hours have passed. And so this one would say which one comes first. Would 2 o'clock come first? Because the shorthand is pointing to the 2. Or would 3 o'clock come first? What do you think? Did you say 2 o'clock comes first? Then you had it. All right, let's look here. So remember, we just have a shorthand because that's our hour hand. So which one would come first? Would 6 o'clock come first? Or would 5 o'clock come first? What do you think? 5 o'clock comes first. So we start at the 12 and we go all the way around. We go 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And we go all the way around till we get till 12. And then we go all the way around again 2 times in our day. Okay, so I'm going to switch it up a little bit here. And we're looking at 3 different clocks. We only have the hour hand. That's just the short guy. R is the hour hand. We're not looking at the minute hand yet. We're just looking at the short hand. And so what we're being asked here to do is to order them, which hour would come first and second and third. So if I take a look here, this one is pointing to the 2. So that one would be at the 2 o'clock. Our hour hand tells us the o'clock. This one's pointing at the 1, so that would be 1 o'clock. This one's pointing at the 3, so that would be 3 o'clock. So what do you think? Take a minute. Which one would come first? Did you guess this one? This one would come first because it's 1 o'clock. What might come next? This one would come next because it says 2 o'clock. And which one would come third? Would be this one because it says 3 o'clock. So 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock. Now there's 2 different ways people talk about the hour in time. Sometimes they say it's the time, number of minutes to the hour. They'll say it's 10 minutes to 4. Or sometimes they talk about the number of minutes after the hour. So they'll say it's 10 minutes after 4 or 4:10. So for example, if we take a look at this clock, the time that is 20 minutes after 3, and it says which hour has just passed. So we look at the 3, and remember I said that unless the hour hand is exactly at the 4 or past the 4, it's not 4 o'clock. So the hour hand isn't always exactly at the 3, right? Right here, it's just a little bit past the 3. So it's moving towards 4 o'clock, but it's still 3 o'clock. So it's the number of minutes that are past 3 o'clock. So we can write the hour. This is how we write the hour, pardon me. So if we look at this one, the hour hand's not touching the 3, but it's not yet touching the 4, so it's still 3 o'clock. How do we write the hour? We write it 3, 0, 0 would be 3 o'clock. Okay, let's look at this one. The hour hand is not touching the 6, but it's not yet at the 7. So where would it be? Yes, it's definitely going to still be at the 6. So we would show that by saying it's at the 6th hour. 0, 0. Okay, let's look at this one. What do you think about this one? Pause the video and think about it. The hour hand is in between the 1 and the 2, so it's still moving past 1 o'clock. It's moving, but it's not yet at 2 o'clock, so it's at 1 o'clock.